myself to the stage there. How you doing there? Facebook, YouTube. On this cigar, you just like the nipple, and it'll burn the rest of the way. And it's literally called that. What I want my coffee. Coffee and my water. Get everything close so to make sure y'all can hear me on the microphone. Microphone check. Microphone check. So who's ever read this book? Read the book, seen a movie, have any kind of understanding of this? Who's used this term, Uncle Tom, to refer to someone who is a traitor to the black community? Hey, Debbie, how you doing? So who's ever read Uncle Tom's Cabin? And who's ever used the term Uncle Tom to describe a black person, particularly used towards men, black men, to describe someone who is and have been a traitor to the black community? Okay, Debbie has not read it. TikTok is being all quiet about whether they've read it or not. And if you read it, when did you read it? I read it, first time we read it was in the 8th grade in Marietta. It was part of the required reading in the 8th grade. And then when I took AP American Lit in the 12th grade, we had to read it. We read it again, but this time we read it again with the understanding, with a deeper understanding of the Civil War and a deeper understanding of what happened after this book, the history of the book, in its conception, its writing, its effect that it had to the American population, both on the North and the South, and then some of the writings and things that came after it that created the misuse of the term Uncle Tom. I've even seen, and here's the beauty of it, or the tragedy of it all, is that you will have people like Malcolm X in some of his speeches call someone an Uncle Tom. And as learned as he was through self-study, he still misused this term in reference. And we've heard that this term used towards more recently, in my memory, this term was used to describe Clarence Thomas quite frequently, which I thought was an abomination, since the term is being definitely used incorrectly when it concerns Clarence Thomas. Now, where are we at on time? 7 minutes. So the 5 minutes of allowing people to get on here has gotten here and passed. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on hopefully re-educating people on the use of this term. And then, of course, we can talk about more things thereafter. So what is the, I know that Debbie hasn't read it, and I was going to break it down anyway, but it's good to have somebody on here who's never read the book. So the book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, was written in the 1800s by Harriet Beecher Stowe. Let me give you the exact date that Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was published in 1852. 1852 is when this book was first published. Harriet Beecher Stowe was a Caucasian female in the North, and the book really is a treatise towards towards anti-slavery and the abolitionary movement that was going on prior to the Civil War. We know that there were other things going on at that time frame, i.e., we had the North and the South was really having an issue over whether or not two new states, I think Kentucky and Missouri, would come into the nation as a slave state. They were applying for statehood. And the current administration was saying that no, they should not come in as a slave state, while the South was saying the people of that state should have their choice and was pushing for them to come in as a slave state. The North wanted to start weeding out slavery. The South at that time frame felt like, look, y'all already taken up all my money, trying to overtax us. Don't want to give us equal representation of voting because we wanted to. The South saying, hey, if you want to do this, then our slaves should count as one vote. And of course, that should count as votes individually. And of course, the slave owner, that would mean that one slave owner would have like 100 votes or 1,000 votes. Or, if you were a small slave owner, 5 votes, 6 votes, 7 votes in any national election or state election. The compromise, the 2/5 compromise, came out that said that no, each slave would be counted as 2/5 of a person, thereby only giving the Southerners 2/5 vote per slave. So you had to have at least 3 slaves in order to get an extra vote in elections. So that was the 2/5 compromise that between the North and the South when it came to voting. We know that over time that spilled over and became the Civil War over a state's right to have slaves and a state's right not to have slaves. So anytime I see these people here in the South saying, oh, it was about states' rights, yes, it was the state right to own a slave, to own a person. The Haven said, hold up, ain't Uncle Tom a mythical character? Didn't some white woman write a book about this so-called character? But people definitely use the term out of context. Yes, Uncle Tom is a mythological character that is based on a real person, though. It is based on the life of Josiah Henson, right? There are some fictional aspects of it. There is actually a split of his character. Josiah Henson portrayed two characters within the book, which instead of showing his progression into the Uncle Tom character, she separated Josiah life on the she separated Josiah's life into 2 characters of Uncle Tom and another character in the book named Sambo. Some of you may remember on our live the other day on Friday when a gentleman, what's his name? I forgot his name. He used the term Sambo, but he was talking about an ancient Hindu deity. But we had to, I asked for clarification as to who he was talking about and what he was talking about to make sure that he wasn't being derogatory towards the audience. And he was talking about the Hindu deity named Sambo, which is actually pronounced Sambu. Now, so yes, he's fictional, but based on a real life character. So to give you that portion of it, Josiah Henson, Samuel Tate, yeah, it was that guy. So to give you the background on this character, Josiah Henson was a former slave who ran away, made it to Canada, and met Harriet Beecher Stowe, told her his story. She converted his story into the book Uncle Tom's Cabin. Now, to give you the fullness of Josiah Henson's story, Josiah Henson was a slave in Kentucky, and he was in Kentucky or Virginia. I think, no, he was in Virginia, I believe. And in this story, Josiah became literate. He was seen he was a sickly child early in his life. Seeing as he was sickly, he wasn't put out into the fields. He then became literate, and just as Nat Turner, he began to be the preacher for the slaves on this gentleman whose name I can't remember right now, farm, on his plantation. He made a deal with this gentleman because you could strike deals back then that you could purchase your freedom. So he made a deal with this gentleman to purchase his freedom. Now, in doing so, there was a time frame where his owner was deeply in debt. And when he was in debt, he wanted to sell some of his slaves. So he charged Josiah with the task of taking the slaves to, I believe, Kentucky. Or it might have been further south, it might have been in Tennessee, to sell as slaves. Now, one interesting point is that when they were crossing through Ohio, At that time frame in Ohio, if a slave made it to Ohio, no matter how they made it to Ohio, whether with a slave master or not, Ohio considered that slave to be free. Josiah, although they were in Ohio, still maintained all the slaves and took them on back into the South, back into slave territory, where some of them was sold. During all this time, Josiah was preaching and would collect money from preaching, and he was a devout Christian. And when he returned back to Virginia and was supposed to buy his freedom for $1,000, his slave master, who needed more money, took the money, told him he'll do all the paperwork, wound up not doing any of the paperwork, told him that if he wanted his freedom, he had to get another $1,000. Being treated this way, he then decided that he was going to escape for his freedom. He escaped into Canada. He then, like Harriet Tubman, helped many others to escape up into Canada, and ultimately searched and looked for his family, and was able to get most of his family members into Canada. And he lived this life and set up a whole Black community in Canada. Now, when Josiah was enslaved, he would take whatever cotton that he picked, and since he didn't have a daily quota, if a slave didn't have enough cotton, he would fill those slaves' cotton bags with enough to ensure that they did not get whipped. If he was instructed to whip some of the slaves, he would not whip them, but tell them that, would fake the whipping, basically. And most times he never whipped a slave. So he played the role of Sambo in that before he realized that the master was cheating him, he would tell on slaves if they were looking to run, or mainly if they were looking to run. He made sure that even when they were technically free in Ohio, he still maintained them as slaves and took them on to be traded. He was both a product of his time, as well as he realized how jacked up things were. And oftentimes we don't realize how jacked up things are until it occurs to us. We're living what we would think is a privileged life in our day and age. We may not see or be blind to what is really going on, the big picture of things. So this book that Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote demonstrates this entire lifestyle on both ends. It demonstrates it in the effect that Uncle Tom was this slave who was educated, who was a preacher, who was a devout Christian. He would do the things as Josiah did, which was to not refuse to beat the slaves. He would load up their bags with cotton to make sure that those slaves weren't punished. He helped some slaves escape in the book. He also escaped himself. He used his understanding of Christianity to convince Eva that slavery was wrong. And then when he was sold to Simeon, or is it Simon or Simeon? I think it's Simon. When he was sold to a slave owner named Simon, this is when he wouldn't give up his hold and showed great discipline in Christianity, which I would say is a fault, but looking at the time frame, it's understandable. But he would not give up. The master was very jealous of his Simon the Greek, of his devotion to Christianity, that it was stronger than his, and tried to whip it out of him and tried to force him to whip other slaves, but he wouldn't do it. And so he ordered Tom to be whipped to death. And so he was whipped to death. In the book, his mother, he was sold off because his mother ran for her freedom because she didn't want to give up another child. She had lost her children two children through miscarriage. She has these other two kids. She didn't want both of them to lose both of them again. She ran off with one and left the other. Kind of a Sophie's Choice situation. She made it to Canada, then she went to France, and then to Liberia in the book. We don't know if such thing happened within Josiah's life, but what we do know is that when Liberia was established after the Civil War, he did assist in kind of a pre-Marcus Garvey movement of helping Black people relocate from Canada and the Americas into Liberia. Tom, Josiah / Uncle Tom, was a character was a person and a character who went through kind of the hero's journey, where he was, I'm living the life that is normal. Now I realize that normality is an abnormality and is an immorality, and then decided that he was going to fight against the current president system. When Lincoln heard of this book, which was, everybody heard of it, it was #1 bestseller. It only sold less. The only book that sold more than that was a 19th century edition of the Bible. But her book sold more than anything else. Lincoln went as far as said, because the abolitionists became so strong after this book, now with Northerners understanding the horror and terror that went on in slavery, because when you read this book, it's very vivid in its description of how slaves were sold as sex slaves, how they was mistreated and abused. Women were mistreated and abused. It described buck breaking. It talked about, the severity of whipping and all these other heinous things and beatings and then attacked by animals, by dogs. It described all these things that the Southern slave owners were doing to Black people. And so the abolitionary movement gained such a strong following thereafter that Lincoln attributed her book as one of the proponents that pushed the Civil War. And when the Southerners heard about this book and read this book, they were pissed off beyond the levels of pistivity, to the highest level of pistivity. They were pissed. And they actually wrote books, one book called the Anti-Uncle Tom Cabin. I believe that's what it was called. Let me check real quick, because I like for my info to be as correct as I can possibly make it. I saw it somewhere in my little notes. It was called so-called anti-Tom literature. And it was called Aunt Phyllis Cabin. And in the book Aunt Phyllis Cabin, they even went as far as to say that African Americans, that Black people, they ain't call them African Americans. They call them, what they call them? They call them Negroes, or the other word, that they were so childlike that they were unable to live without having direct supervision by Caucasians. So the Southerners went about their way, went to at length to discredit the book. The biggest thing that they did to discredit the idea of Uncle Tom was the beginning of the minstrel shows. So the minstrel shows were white people painted in blackface, and they did everything they could to show that Black people were childlike, that Black people were ignorant, that buffoons. And this is where the character Sambo got a lot of push, but Uncle Tom was right there with them as if they were co-partners in their foolishness. And so we saw that post-Civil War into the 20s, and referred, instead of reading the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, understanding what the book was actually about, our one ancestor ago for some of us, they took that as what the book was about, as what Uncle Tom was, and ran with the terminology that a person who is anti their own people, anti-Black people especially, that those people were Uncle Toms. So even a person born in the, I think Malcolm was born in the 1920s, 30s. No, he was a grown ass man in the 20s. But they took that and ran with the idea that Uncle Tom was a negative person in the black community. Carol, you're asking year the book was written. It was 1853, I believe, is when the book was written. 1854. Yeah, hold on. It was published in 1852. Time to trim the mustache, if that's what you're asking about the year. I don't know what TY means. But ever since then, we have taken a book that was written by what we would call today an ally, and allowed it to be misused and misinterpreted multiple times to mean something that it doesn't really mean. Now, there have been movies that were made where they tried to be more true to the book, but yet this stigma still remains. So, like, I don't have a problem. If you call me Uncle Tom, I'm like, you goddamn right. Because, oh, thank you. Oh. Okay, got it. I'm still learning shorthand internet text. Like, this conversation came up in the lounge one time, and somebody called somebody Uncle Tom. And I was like, oh, you're giving them a compliment. And they was like, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, have you not read Uncle Tom's Cabin? You know, it's one of those, I was being a smart ass because I knew that they didn't understand it. And, you know, that's how you are in the cigar lounge. Everybody's an asshole. We all got sarcastic remarks towards each other and set people up for jokes. But once I explained it, I realized that I was sitting in a room filled with about 7 or 8 grown men, a couple of women, and all of us were over the age of 45. And not one of the people in the room knew the actual story of Josiah Henson, actually remembered when they read the book, or if the book was read to them, or if they read the book, it was not described correctly. Thankfully, I had history teachers and literary teachers in Marietta, Georgia, who refused to teach that book in the same way that it had been taught, and obviously been taught in most other situations. So my AP English Lit teacher, my 8th grade history teacher, Mr. Ragsdale, so it was Mr. White in high school, Mr. Ragsdale in junior high. Mr. Ragsdale was a white man who was very adamant about teaching correct American history. He would be vilified today because he was basically teaching CRT back in the mid-early 1980s. He made sure that we had a correct understanding of what this book was actually about and what who Uncle Tom truly was. We knew in the 8th grade who Josiah Henson was. He didn't go into all the anti-rhetoric that happened afterwards. It wasn't until I got into this 12th grade with Dr. White that he actually broke it down deeper into how the South responded to it and tried to curtail the Northern image of what was going on with slavery down in the South, because they didn't have TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. You know, for them, the written word was truth. Newspapers were truth. These horrific stories that was happening to Black people during those time frames, they didn't really get the full breadth of it until Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote this. I don't know why I always say her whole government name, but they don't know. But it wasn't until she wrote this book that it made people realize how things were actually in the South. And from that, we have a major catalyst to the Civil War. It wasn't the catalyst, but it was a major catalyst for it. So Black people all around in the Americas should be thankful to Harriet. We should also be even more thankful to Josiah Henson, and should recognize that when we call a person Uncle Tom, that is not a negative, it doesn't have a negative connotation to it, but yet has a positive connotation in the effect that this was a person who, in the midst of all that they were going through, was still dedicated to the proper treatment of our ancestors. Now, for us on here, we would look at his devotion to Christianity in a negative light. Simply because that devotion to Christianity, even though he fought against what was being done, he fought against it by trying to educate people. He fought against it by trying to teach people the parts of the Bible that does and should inspire people to treat people fairly and equally. He didn't take the 18. Sorry about that. He didn't take the Haitian 1804 revolution pathway, which is what I would have preferred. I think that was one of the great opportunities back after the Civil War for Black people to be able to establish their own community, their own state, their own nation during that time frame. With almost 4 million Black people in America after the Civil War, the area in and around, one of the areas that would have been easier for us to take as our own nation would have been relatively small, but the coastal area of South Carolina, even in and around Charleston, would have been a great statehood for Black people. If instead of Liberia, it would have been the Gullah regions of South Carolina, which Charleston would have been like the capital city. It would have been about the size of New Jersey, Delaware. Well, it would have been bigger than Delaware. You need more than that for 4 million people. But New Jersey, Connecticut size area that Black people could have had their own statehood in that area. And there were enough educated Black people to be able to formulate a government during that time frame. If that would have happened, that would have been the best case scenario. It is much harder to do something like that today, since we are such a diverse community. But it could have been easily done then, just as easily as Liberia was established. But even Liberia by Monroe was a horrible establishment, as we see that they are still just now getting kind of on their feet after almost 200 years of being created as a free state, a free nation for those who were enslaved in this country. I kind of expected more comments and questions during that first 30-minute introduction. But I didn't get as much. So I'm kind of like, okay, where do we go here without repeating myself too much? But so far, has this understanding, what I've talked about thus far, has that changed anyone's thought process on the term Uncle Tom? Or does that inspire anyone to pick the book up and go read it? And go read the book. I know it's going to be a little bit difficult because you're going to, when I read, I see it plays in my head. Like I have the movie of a book playing in my head when I read a novel. So I know that to read it again now, I would create each character in my mind and they would interact as if they were in a movie. It helps me to retain the book even more. But it's something that I don't remember if anybody ever taught me that. It's just something I remember I've always done for as far back as I can remember. Because like when I was a kid and it was see Spot run, I saw a dog with a spot running. But is anybody going to go and read this book now? Or at least go research the book? There are plenty of resources on. There are movies that were made. I think Morgan Freeman made a version of this. He was in a version of this book. Felicia Rashad was in a version of this book. We didn't read the book, but I did hear of Uncle Tom being a good verse. Him being good versus him being bad. I have, in all honesty, other than Mr. Ragsdale and Dr. White, I have never heard it being used good. I used to try to convince my grandfather every time he used it that that's not what it means. Of course, I was that one. I mean, he would look at me gruffly and like, you know, he was old school. You know, don't correct him too tough. So I didn't do it. I never did it in public. I always did it behind the scenes. Like he would say it, and then when he's in his room watching the Braves game, I was like, you know, granddaddy, Uncle Tom was actually the hero in the book. He wasn't the bad guy. That was Sambo. Let me tell you how perverse it was, though. I played baseball at this one park in Marietta. I was loved by the owners of the park, owners of the league. All the little white people loved me. I used to go into the concessions. They would give me free food, all this stuff. And my grandfather hated it. And one year, when I won MVP for my age group, they put Sambo on my trophy. And I know that's when my grandfather recognized that maybe I was onto something when I would tell him, because I used to correct him all the time about Uncle Tom. Realized that maybe I was onto something, because when I got that trophy and I had it, and I went out to the pitcher's mound to get it, and I saw the inscription on it, and then the guy announced, you know, Dwayne, they call me by my middle name back then, Dwayne Sambo Reed. And I looked at that trophy and it had that on there. And it pissed me off. Now, as a child, you know, you was always taught to be grateful, show gratitude, all that, but I was not happy. And I remember I cried a little bit while I was standing on there. People may have thought I was crying out of gratitude or something. But then when I walked off, I got into the dugout, I slammed the damn trophy on the ground and broke it, right? And my coach, Kenny, was like, "What's wrong?" And I told him, you know, in a child way, because I was about 11, I said, no, I said, this is BS. I didn't say bullshit, but I was like, this is BS. I was like, Sambo is a horrible character, you know. No, so I was older. And I had to be, no, because I was with Kenny. I played for Kenny most of my time. So I was more around 13. Yeah, I was like 13. I slammed it on the ground. And then when I came out, my grandfather he looked at me. He went up into the PA, and I don't know what he said, but the announcer apologized for calling me that. Right? He was reading what they had given him to be on the trophy. But he apologized, and I never played for that park again. Never played for it again. After that, I don't recall my grandfather ever using that term again, because I never had to correct him again. He passed away 2 years later, but I never had to correct him again on the use of that term. Anytime when I was in the Marine Corps and I would hear people use that term, I would correct them. But it would seem that most people would reject the correction. Like it's such a thing that's ingrained in our community that has been one of the most difficult things. It's almost like the N-word. It's trying to get Black people to stop using the N-word, and trying to get them to stop using the term Uncle Tom's Cap. Uncle Tom is par to the same level, you know. I got to check it out now because I've used it in the wrong way. And that's been my goal. So every so often, I will make a video concerning it, even though I know I'm saying the exact same shit, because if we don't take our history and make it what it is and what it should be, then we allow others to do whatever they decide that they want to do with it. I mean, essentially, that's what happened with the South and their, you know, their anti-Tom literature, their minstrel shows, and using the character of Uncle Tom in the minstrel shows with Sambo to negate the impact of that book. If more and more Black people, as they became literate during that time frame, would have read that book, it may have and probably would have inspired Black people to do more to solidify their own selves. Not that they weren't doing it; they were definitely doing it in great number. Of course, we were being massacred and drowned out, and Jim Crow laws came into effect. But if families were teaching that more and more, it would have negated one of the things that we have been duped into utilizing against ourselves, as if it is something that we should be doing. Oh yeah, granddaddy. You either call him granddaddy or you call him no, you call him granddaddy. We never called him granddad or pops or nothing like that. He was always granddaddy. Right now I can call him Ross. That's what my grandmother called him, Ross. I don't know why she called him by his last name. Probably because he served in the military. That's what everybody called him. But I have convinced, over the years, most of my family members not to use that term. And I've convinced them, half of them, okay, they won't use the N word around me. They only use it when I'm not around. Because there has been times where they didn't know I was around and they use it. But anytime I'm around and they know it, they won't use it. Because they know if they use it, I'm going to correct them. To this day. If they ever use it you won't use it towards me, you won't use it towards anybody that I'm close to, and you damn sure ain't going to use it towards my children. And I've ensured that my children never use either one of those words they can use Uncle Tom in the correct way, but they never use the term Sambo, or they won't use the term the N word, because it's just something that I'm not going to tolerate for them. And the other portion of it is that as much as I don't like the fact that we have to qualify ourselves to everyone around us, yet we still have to qualify ourselves to everyone around us, right? But you can't win the respect of people if you don't have respect for yourself. And in order for us to truly have equality, we have to have respect for ourselves and then force other people to have respect for us. I already explained how we got into this conversation, Samuel, from Friday. But yeah, we definitely have to take hold of our own history. When I see a Black person who is against CRT, it makes me question their allegiance to Black people, question their allegiance to fairness and equality. I'm not asking for us to oppress anyone. I am looking for the non-oppression of all people. It shouldn't be anyone, no one should oppress another person, period. Especially not as a group. You know, to categorize everybody into one group and to oppress them goes against any level of decent morality. regardless of what their religious book says. If your religious book, like the Bible, that does give rules and authorizes different forms of slavery, a person should be able to rise above what their book says, not try to justify it, not try to clean it up, as I did with the video that I posted over the weekend with Alan Parr, the pastor, preacher Alan Parr, trying to justify slavery and renegotiate what slavery was in the Bible and what it is in the Bible, and just recognize it that it is what it is in the Bible. But we have grown and matured in our culture to be beyond that, even though we know that there's still forms of slavery that still goes on today. We know that countries, like everybody was, black people were like, oh, they killed Gaddafi, and they was all on Gaddafi's side. And I was like, fuck Gaddafi. I understand what he was trying to do as far as unifying Africa under one currency. Great message, wrong messenger. Because a country, Libya, that still is participating in the trans-Sahara slave trade. You can't unify Africa, the continent, and you are still in your individual country of Libya allowing slavery of the sub-Saharan Africa. You're basically saying, I want people to be, was my take on Gaddafi. He was trying, because Libya is one of the few countries that don't have a World Bank. So he was trying to create and have enough support from Africa, from the continent, knowing where all the majority of resources are, and knowing that in the future that will be one of the wealthiest places on the planet, trying to gain control of the financial world, but still wanting to abuse the sub-Saharan Africans. Wrong person who was still trying to manipulate black people, because Gaddafi's not a black man, he's Arab. He doesn't associate with us. He doesn't identify with us. He doesn't see us. Well, he didn't see us as a brother. So I weep no tears at his demise. I never supported any of his antics. I didn't support the ones who killed him either. But he is not someone that I was going to support in any form of fashion. I like the fact that some of the African countries, like the former French nations, are proposing to create one currency that they trade amongst each other, and so on and so forth. With other African nations, the construction of the East African Federation by, I think it's 8 nations now, to form one nation. But Gaddafi is not the right guy. Great message, wrong person. Some of the, me and Angelina was watching Seaspiracy. And part of Seaspiracy, they show the debt slavery and outright slavery of people in Southwest Asia, and how they kill people, kidnap people, force them to work on these boats, keep them on these boats in order to fish the ocean. When I was in the military, one of my jobs that I held for 6 years, I got to see firsthand the sex slave trade operation. So slavery, there are slavery systems still persisting. After the Civil War, we had the 13th Amendment, which still gave a form of legalized slavery in America that we still have today. That slavery is through our prison system. The 13th Amendment basically states that slavery is to be abolished in America, but except for prison labor. We saw, and this is why when people say, oh, Bill Clinton was the first black president, a bullshit. Ooh. Clinton and his wife, this is why I would never vote for Hillary. I would vote for the Republican before I vote for Hillary. I don't care what Republican they put up there. Their anti-crime bill, their prison industrialization system, which black people's incarceration has went up 700% since the 13th Amendment. and the Clintons had forced slavery on the grounds in Arkansas. They perpetuated black slavery in this country in the modern day almost as much as anybody else. You don't have the right to vote. You don't have the right for fair wages when you're working in a work program in prison. You can't start a business. You can't get an LLC. You have to do it in somebody else's name and all this other kind of BS. You can't get a passport. All these different things. So our 13th Amendment still allows for a form of slavery in America. You see what y'all saying? And the mentality is to be exclusive. Just a lot of things. No, our prison system is slavery, exactly. On the books to be used as profit, free labor, just wait till the open slave state starts again, open sacrifice, other nations will be buying our slave debt and debtors. Which is surely, except I don't think, you're not going to be able to get an open slave market again. We would have to have a worldwide civilization collapse in order for something like that to happen again. I think more people will raise up in arms. You're not going to be able to walk up and I don't care what military is out there, what police force is out there. If you come to my house trying to enslave me, you will get shot or I will get shot. But somebody going to get shot plenty of times. And I'm going to take a few people with me before I get got. No, Gaddafi was not a good guy. The American propaganda media played him up to be the evil empire guy, but Gaddafi was not a good guy. You basically had two evil people fighting each other. So he was not good at all. One of the benefits of growing up in a black city with black schools, you grow up prideful of who you are. Now that drugs and alcohol destroyed the essence of Gary, made it to a ghost city, is getting better than it was. I assume now that many blacks from Chicago have moved in. Yep. Now Gary also lost because I think it was a steel mill that actually initially formed Gary, Indiana. And people came there for those jobs, but when that steel mill left, Gary just went to hell in the handbasket. So before the drugs decimated Gary, I believe the loss of the steel mill initiated that problem. I don't know much about all these entities you talked about, Samuel. How you doing, Skybox? But there is something to be said to grow up in some of these black cities. To grow up in Atlanta or DC, Detroit, Chicago, to grow up in black communities. There have been many things, many assaults on the black community since the 13th Amendment. After the 13th Amendment is when we get all the Jim Crow laws that were designed to decimate the black community. We had the creating of lakes. We had the U.S. highway system it was designed to grow the nation, but it is also to connect the nation, I should say, and grow the nation. Help us get out of the Great Depression, but it was also used to destroy many prosperous great black towns, like right outside of Miami and Montgomery, Alabama, and many other cities were destroyed because of the U.S. highway system. It's an interesting deep dive into all the different directions that the U.S. highway system went purposely in order to destroy black town. Like down in Montgomery, they had the opportunity to go across a farm and buy up that land and take 85 that way. But instead, they plowed straight through a prosperous black town it was out of the way. They went out of their way to do it. And then of course, FDR promised everybody a house, but then created redlining. Redlining was purposely designed to keep black people from buying homes, since they know that the first way to establish generational the easiest way, the most common way to establish generational wealth is through the purchase of your home. Uh, if on my business channel, I'm going to talk about um, the Sumerians and well, it wasn't the Sumerians. There is it Arcadia? Sargon the Great. I think he's Arcadian. Yeah, he's Arcadian, but he established what we found as far as the richest man in Babylon, where one of the lessons of building wealth is to make your home into an investment, right? You have to make where you live into an investment. And buying a home, buying land is one of the safest, sturdiest financial investments that a person can make. Instead of having college debt, you mortgage your house again, or you start a business, you mortgage your house, you use that land as collateral, things of that nature. Say 157 in Durham. I remember being called in as a child when my parents drove out of Gary. Yeah, I remember being called it, and even as a small child, I never understood why other black people call themselves that same word. I don't recall any time frame where that was part of my vernacular. Um, because logically, even as a child, it didn't make any sense to me that we would call ourselves something like that. And even now, um, and I'm gonna say it correctly, these modern day Sambos are trying to say that, well, it comes from the word negus. No, it does not. It does not come from the word negus. The Europeans who came over here had very little information about Ethiopia. So the fact that they would try to take negus, which is a Ethiopian word that's representative of a king or a crown, they were not trying to change the Ethiopians by changing us, because the majority of us didn't come from Ethiopia. Hell, the very few did. Is that Alexander or Alexander in North Carolina? I have no idea. What is the green comet? What are your thoughts on the trust set up by the Vatican in 1308, freedom, right, and the commission common law by John Henry Hill Sr. is very informative. I would have to look that up. I've never heard of the trust set up in 1308. If you can tell me a little bit about it, that'd be great. The accents changed the spelling. Negus never had anything, and Naga has nothing to do with the N word and its usage. The Portuguese, the Spanish, they use the term negro. And from negro, the white Southerners and Northern Southerners who were using a different variation of Scottish, mostly Scottish, those West Virginia accents and Southern accents, pretty much in form of language derived from more of the Scottish peasantry. And instead of saying Negro, or a term to Negro, and from Negro to dehumanize, it was the other N word. So it has nothing to do with the Negas. And exactly, Carol, the Negas were reptilians, uh, and it had nothing to do with Niger either. Right, and they would never want to call slaves kings. When you take someone into slavery or oppression, what you want to do is to destroy their confidence in themselves, their confidence in their history. You want to strip them away of anything that could cause them to rise up against you, especially after 1804, when Haiti rose up. They definitely had it in for destroying Black communities and the mindset of Black people. Um, I'm always interested in Masonic buildings. They're always interesting to me. The symbolism of them all. I don't know what you mean by. I don't know what opening up the accents would do to, uh, in regards to the word, the N word being used is already explained of how Americans took that word that meant black in Spanish and Portuguese and converted it into a negative connotation towards black people. The green comet comes every 400 years. It appears this week. Now that'd be cool because I am a stargazer. I am a stargazer, so I'll check that out. Um, the green comet. Is it something you can see in the northern hemisphere, or well, I'm assuming since you're saying it, it's a northern hemisphere thing because I think you're in Memphis, so it must be a northern hemisphere thing. You should be ready to move away from Gary, Indiana, unless you get a major company, car company, or manufacturing company or something come to Gary. Gary ain't growing. Oh, you're in Fort Wayne? Okay. Samuel, state your point. Because no amount of the N word is the N word. It was a word that was used to destroy black people, to destroy who we are, to take away our heritage, to strip us of our humanity. It can never be converted into anything else. But in the same way, whether it's an accident or not, the use of the word Uncle Tom, the term Uncle Tom, is just a slant of history. Now, part of it you can blame on the fact that the overwhelming majority of black people after the Civil War could not read, so they never read that book. And then by the time before the people could read the book, it became popularized to use it in a negative term because of the shows that they saw. Its actual name is Nishimura, 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 Nishimura. I'm probably saying that all wrong, but I'll use that Google Voice thing to say it right. I've already said America is about humiliation. America consistently does that, and it's about domination. Um, Quick little story of understanding that. Most of the people who came from Italy, when they got here, because the Anglo-Saxon Americans couldn't say their name right, they say it wrong. So when I on the first ship that I was on, and we pulled up to Italy, one of the guys on the boat knew that his family was from Trieste, so he wanted to go find his family, some of his family members. His name was Giordano in America. But when he got there, it took him a little bit of time, but he come to realize, no, his family wasn't from Trieste, they were from Milan. Um, it's just from Trieste, it was easier to get to Milan. When he took 3 days of leave to go try to find some of his family members, he realized that the name was Giordano Negesi, something like that, Giordano Negesi. It was different. So that's when he understood that when they came across on Ellis Island, if they couldn't pronounce their name, they would just say whatever their name was, and then that became their name. So Anglo-Saxon Europeans are notorious for, we don't say your name however we say your name, and that's what you're going to accept. It has 4 administrative hubs operating as independent international subsidy states. Oh shit, wait a minute. I skipped one of your things, that's why I didn't. Rome never died. Rome has headquarters of the trust. The trust is the largest corporate conglomerate interlocking. I think I know what you're talking about. Are you talking about the deal, the corporation deal that was set up in the Vatican that basically makes, I think, like Italy, England, America, and someplace else as corporations to it and can never have a kingship, doesn't really have like the presidents and stuff, prime ministers still answer to the Vatican. And it's like, well, it's like Rome, London, DC, and I think Paris. Trust runs out of the Vatican, Westminster, Washington, D.C. Okay. I saw something about that actually like 6 months ago. And I meant to go back and look at it and research more on it. If cars are rusting, after a few years getting now, part of that would be y'all right by the damn lakes. But that's not a salt lake, but still the water. And then y'all do have bad air quality. My brother is up there right now in Gary. And every time he goes up there, he talks about how bad y'all air quality is. Your roads are jacked up. Samuel, I'm done with that subject matter, right? Yeah, steel mills. I thought so. And then with so many buildings that are all jacked up and trash and bacteria and all that kind of stuff up there. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but Gary is sitting in a cesspool of poverty, which, stagnant waters, sitting inside of buildings, creating bug infestations and vermin and all these different things. So, yeah, I don't even want to go visit Gary. My brother keep on telling me he want me to ride up there with him one time. I'm like, look, I ride to Chicago. I don't want to ride to Gary. I see it once just to see how run down it is, and I'm good. I would have to do more research on this trust because I saw a video about it where a person was explaining how this trust and how our Constitution is written in such a way to support this trust. And yeah, that we provide military, we're like the military defense for it, that the presidents are not truly the administrator over the countries, but are still at the behest of the Pope and the throne of England. So the 70s was a blast. It's because y'all had Michael Jackson and Jackson 5. Motown was up and down a lot. I'm not being dismissal. It's just not the conversation that I'm having today. You have to understand, and I'm going to be very frank here, Samuel. Understand this is not your podcast. This is my podcast. It is not a subject matter to which I am indulging into because I choose not to. Just as I've said with other things, I don't know as much about a trust, so I can't about this trust that Shirley is talking about, so I can't go in detail about it. When we was asking me about Brexit last week, I don't know as much about it, so I don't go into details about it. I do know more about the trust than what you're talking about, but I understand what you're saying. To truly understand the language, but you're talking about accents to a language. And I related that to how words have changed and meanings changed because people speak in different accents. But you're the only one talking about it. So this was established Right. And then the video that the guy was talking about, he was saying how this was something that was established when America was still colonies. And then we didn't necessarily win the Revolutionary War, but this was part of the treaty of the Revolutionary War. Uh, and in order for England to go ahead and say, okay, y'all, we're going to let y'all look like you're free, but you're really not. You're really not free. You're still beholden to us here in England, to the throne, and you're still beholden to Rome. That was about 6 months ago because I had to go to a meeting up in that was 2 hours away. But um, we do have to be mindful about how language is used for us and against us. Where are you, sir? Where are you at? I'm curious because of your last statement. Because the memory of the Civil War flag here in the South, you're in Lynchburg, Virginia. The reason why I ask that because the memory of the flag in at least in where I've traveled in the South, I've never been to Lynchburg, is still vibrant. Uh, they are still walking around thinking that this flag was about states' rights and states' right only, excluding states' rights to own slaves. I don't think any of the political parties are trying to break away from the English government. To do that, you got to break away from. You got to change the Constitution. You got to change some of the treaties. Uh, well, or just which I mean, it's not like America hasn't ignored treaties before. They ignored the treaties with the Native American tribes very easily. Oh, civil flag is a white field with blue stars, stripes running horizontal. Oh, that flag. My bad. I thought you were talking about the Confederate flag. Mm-mm. America has constantly been at war. Constantly been at war. And what's sad is that America has been more at war with its own citizens than it has been at war with other nations. We, America, and the worst part of it is that the war of America against its own citizens has been drawn based on racial lines. We were at war with Japanese Americans. They were at war with Italian Americans, Irish Americans. They've been at war with Black Americans the entire time. Um, been at war with Chinese Americans. But America has and is currently still at war with Latin Americans, Hispanic Americans. America, when people say America is not a country of racism, I don't understand what America they're looking at because this country consistently, through different policies and politics and policing, have been at war with maintaining supremacy of Anglo Saxons from the very beginning. What do I think about blacks voting in this atmosphere? I think a black party should be established. We shouldn't be voting Republican, Democrat, or Libertarian, Green Party, none of them. But a black party should be established. Uh, shouldn't be overly concerned about the federal government, uh, but should be more concerned about local elections. Like in Atlanta, a black party would prevail. If the black people were voting in the black party, we have a fist with the black and the red, because local politics affect us more than anything else. And when we vote Democrat or Republican, we're not voting to our best benefit. We're voting to the benefit of what Caucasians will allow us to have and allow us to do, instead of voting based on we're going to do what we want to do and get what we want to have. Yeah, I voted since I was 18, but I haven't voted in the last. I did vote in 2020. But I was primarily focused on some local selections, the local elections. So I did vote then. I skipped the election before that. But I normally, when I do vote, I'm really just focused on the local. And I don't care Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. Hell, most presidential election, I either wrote my name in it or I voted for the Libertarian. So you got 0 responses on that? Yeah. It is hard to break people away from it. And then they say stupid stuff like, well, if you didn't vote at all, then you voted for the Republicans. It's like, no, I didn't vote for them either. I voted for neither one. Right, voting gives your power away to a man who makes decisions for you while you're not in the room. You don't trust your daddy that well. Mm-mm. A direct line you write out. A district line you write out. Well, that's the thing. Federally, they might be able to get away with that. Even at a state level, in certain degrees, you can get away with that. But when you got a city like Atlanta that is so condensed with black people, you cannot draw a line. There are very few lines that can be drawn that would be able to block a black party, right? In the local elections. Like out here where I live, it's predominantly black. 10 minutes from here, it starts to be about 60-40. You can't cut into this line because it's a new county. So from where that county ends all the way to where I am, it's like 80% black. You wouldn't be able to go across those county lines to disrupt elections at a local level. No, and neither one of them was needed for black people. They look to pacify black people. What does the electoral? Okay, like I understand you're saying it'll take away your representative from the electoral college. Those Democrats and Republicans who are black and run for those offices are still going to get in those offices. Would we probably lose some Democrats? Yeah, we're going to lose some Democrats. But at the national level, what does the federal government does for the local black community in Atlanta? Not a whole lot. Most urban areas, black people live in most urban areas. We're not really all that affected by the federal government. And even at the state level, we would have our representation in the states because of those urban centers. Like in Georgia, the Savannahs, Savannah, Columbus, Atlanta, Augusta, we can still get black people in those state offices. Now, if you're looking at some of the senators within the states, and Congress people though in the state legislature, we'll still get our black people in the Congress. So the two levels of government that affects people the most, we will still have representation. So if it was a merciful God, he would blind us so that we couldn't see color. If it was a merciful God, then we'd all just be the same color. We'd all be the same color. We'd all be the same world. The black churches will be and they will be very difficult. One of the keys would be to get the black churches on board, which is hard because nothing's going to be easy, but that'd be hard. And you are absolutely right, Sammy. It doesn't matter because they're not going to represent black people anyway until black people first look at the most local thing that they can do, which is buy land and houses, own businesses, and own the businesses in their community, and support those businesses in their community, run those businesses correctly in the community, and own the properties in the community. You're going to get representation when you do that because that's who gets the representation. Asians don't have to have anybody in politics, but they get what they want in politics because they own property, they own the businesses, and they support those businesses, regardless of any outside interference. Well, see, now what type of Indian are you talking about, Carol? Are you talking about India from India or Native American Indian? Because, like I just said, Asians got the money, got money, land, and businesses. Spanish people are having money, land, and business. That's how you get power. The Native Americans, they have their agreements, and they have like, if you get caught violating a law on a Native American reservation, everything is handled by the Native Americans. The state, federal, local governments, they don't have jurisdiction over what happens on their land. If you're going to have a legitimate business in America, you have to do an LLC. There are certain things that there's no way around. And no, just because they're Chinese doesn't mean China owns it. That's Republican bullshit on that one, sir. I call Republican bullshit on that. Straight up. I've helped too many Chinese Americans set up their LLCs, and I've seen all the documentation on it, even the ones who set up trusts, and it's not owned by China. But there's nothing about the Chinese government in their LLCs. Well, no, if it's a corporation, you don't need an LLC. No, you still have an LLC. Corporation is a limited liability corporation that you set up as a C corp or an S corp. So that's still an LLC. So if you're going to, and really setting up the LLCs is for protection and taxation, depending on how you set it up. You can set it up where you eliminate personal liabilities, but at the same time, there's a hell of a lot more paperwork, and there's different types of taxes that are involved in that one. If you are set up as an S corp, you have limited personal liability, but take the advantage of the tax of the C corp. If it's a partnership, LLPs, then your shared liability with another persons, but you get the tax benefits of a C corp. And then if you're a sole proprietor, you don't get the tax benefits of a C corp. You get a different type of tax benefits, but you are liable as hell for anything that happens to your company or with your company and customers and other federal government statutes. If your origin of country is China, Mexico, or any of those places, and you set up an LLC, you are not beholden to those countries unless that country itself has an agreement with the other country that they will report the amount of money that you make, and that's only if you're still holding citizenship, not country of origin. Like if I go set up a business in the Bahamas and I am still holding American citizenship, still holding an American place of residence, then I could be, and I'm doing business in America and in the Bahamas, I am susceptible to having to pay taxation for both countries. When you fly the American peacetime war flag, you give over your property for military installations and occupation during martial law. You could lose your control over your home and business. Technically, by law, that is correct. Most people just don't expect that to ever happen, so they just do it anyway. But most LLCs that are held by like people who are holding dual citizenships and whatnot, they're not paying taxes to the other country. They're not. And even when you do your taxes as an American, I don't know how this damn conversation got into taxes, but even when you do your taxes as an American and you're in another country, unless I'm doing business in America on international American grounds, I don't pay taxes to America. Like the cleaning services that I owned in Germany, the only portions of that money that I had to pay American taxes on was the cleaning services that I provided on base. But all the cleaning services I provided off base, I had to pay German taxes, which after my first year of that, I stopped doing business on German soil because goddamn them taxes was weighing me out. Right. If you're only paying sales tax on what you take back across the border, and international taxation is weird. It's strange. And this is why like you have accountants and lawyers who specialize in certain countries, because each country is going to have different rules. That's how you set it up. But that's not what we do here. That's not what we're talking about. But back to the main thing here. I still haven't done any research on Brexit. I don't think it'll become the new world cup. It'll be. Let me not say what I don't think, because I still haven't. We just talked about that on Friday. This weekend was about football. But we as people in this country should be buying land, buying houses, buying properties, buying tax liens properties, so that you're not paying big ass mortgages. increasing your credit score, even though I think credit score is bullshit, but increasing your credit score. Uh, this is something, I'm gonna cut this video and put all this on my business page. But we should be we should be building our economics. If you're gonna stay here, we should be building our economics here. But yes, do have to pay duty taxes when you cross borders. How about how people get away more than they owe on taxes and come out even? Put your money in the hands of the people who need it. Yeah, I don't pay. I'm gonna tell you something. I haven't paid taxes really since '91. I always make sure that, and let me tell you, I haven't paid taxes, but I've never overpaid in taxes since '91. I've always paid exactly what is necessary. Even every summer when the new tax codes come out in July, I go through that Pub 70 and see what adjustments I need to make, because I refuse to give the government any more money than I should throughout the year. If the Brexit money is going to be gold back, now that's going to be some shit there. That'll also slow down inflation in some of these countries and in the world. Should have invested in the dinar. Talking about that's the you mean out of the United Arab Emirates, the dinar? Okay, I've always known that Hawaii is actually pronounced Hawaii. Okay, pronounced Hawaii. That's how they pronounce it. Now I'm okay. This week, I promise I'm gonna go and research Brexit. I promise, and I'm gonna do. When I research, I'm gonna do a deep dive beyond the basics on Brexit. But we should, like, I was just talking to one of my aunts. She was telling me that she wants to buy a house, and she's, let's see, my mother is 73, 74 years old, so Aunt May got to be 70. At least she got to be around 70. And I told her, no, you do not need to buy a house the conventional way. The way that you need to buy a house is to buy a tax lien. And she was thinking that she had to go to the auction. I was like, nope, you can go to the after auction market, which is just going to your tax assessor's office. Some tax assessor's offices have it online. Look up the list and look at the list and then see what properties are available for you to just buy it. Go evaluate the property. Take somebody who you're going to have to do the construction work of it. Get an appraiser to go look at it and see what its current value is. Go and pay the money for the appraiser. Appraise it, see what the construction person would determine will be the amount to make the house livable. Make sure the appraiser's value is higher than whatever the construction cost would be. If it does, then you go buy that house. You have to wait. Georgia is a 1-year state. You have to wait a year to give whoever owes that tax debt a year to pay you the tax plus 20%. If they don't, which 80% of them never do, if they don't come back in a year, have the money to pay for the taxes for the next year, then another about $1,200-$1,500 to pay a lawyer to have the property titled over to you. If you want to figure the paperwork out yourself, you can do that, but have the paperwork titled over to you. So now you own this house, and all you paid was the taxes on it for 2 years. Now that the house is yours, since the appraised value, let's say the appraised value for the house is $80,000. It's going to take $30,000 to fix the house up. You go to the bank, use that property and that appraiser that appraisal as as collateral. Get a HELOC loan for $60,000. Take the HELOC loan is normally 7 years. Take that $30,000 out of the HELOC, pay for the house to get fixed up. Now for her, if she's gonna live in the house, don't get 60,000. If it takes 30,000, get a HELOC, have it as a line of credit, pull only what you need to fix up the house, get it fixed up, and then in 7 years you'll pay the HELOC off and you're done with it. Now all you're paying is taxes for the rest of your life in the house if you choose to live in it. Now if you're doing it as an investment property, you go ahead and get the whole amount, because then you're gonna take the remaining amount and you're gonna buy you some more tax liens and repeat the process. Some houses you'll flip, some houses you'll rent. But you make sure that the house that you're renting, that whatever the rental amount is, it will pay off the HELOC within 7 years. So like if you can get $1,000 a month for that house, then you know that if you get a $60,000 HELOC on that house in about 5.5 years, you'll have that house paid off. And now it's free and clear. No mortgage on it, no debt on it, other than what you put in escrow to fix the roof or fix the air conditioner or something like that when it goes out. So that's what I just advised my aunt May over the weekend on how to buy a house, especially at 70 years old. And she's a very, very able-bodied 70-year-old. She still runs an in-house daycare. I don't know how she do it without the kids, but you know. So my Aunt May will probably be able-bodied until she's about 100. Getting rid of my house soon. I'm paying damn near double in home value here. Oh, they're paying the double home. It's a good time to get out of it. Let's see. And you where do you want to move to, Slaughter? Out of curiosity. Millennials have been going back to the premise of buying a house instead of renting. Yeah, if your credit really ain't gonna matter too much, as long as you situate it, long as if you got that collateral and you got profit, you got a down payment. The lower your credit score, the bigger the down payment. So you're gonna move to the south. Here again, this is what I would do if I was you. I would find me a tax lien property that you wouldn't mind living in for at least a year in the south, whatever southern city you want to move to. I would come down, I would buy that tax lien. I would run that whole system of a tax lien that I just said. Then get the house fixed up. Get the HELOC anyway. Then sell your house up there once the house is fixed up where you can move into it. Then take the profits from the sale of your house and whatever's remaining on your HELOC loan, and go buy you some more tax liens. Now your payment is whatever a 7-year payment would be on that HELOC. And that would be your payment. I wouldn't use my money there from the profits to pay the HELOC off. No, you use that money to buy you like 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 additional tax lien properties. Wait that year, get those, pay the tax on it again, get HELOCs for each one of them. Each house is set up in its own trust, individual trust. So you got to pay that $1,200, $1,500 to put them in a trust. And that way, if somebody is injured in one house, they can't sue you based on the properties you have in the other houses. So that's why you set up individual trusts for each house. That way, within 3 years, you now have a house that you're living in with a low ass payment, but you also in 3 years have 11, 10, 12 properties that you can then live off the rents and continue to buy other properties. And you ain't got to work no more. You ain't got to go work for somebody else. Your work is buying more tax liens. So now you can do whatever the hell you want to do. I don't know how you want to live your life, what things you want to do. But if you got about 10 houses and they're paying you enough money for you to live, and then you know that within 7 years of the last purchase of a house, that all those houses will be 90, well, not 90, because you got to pay 10% to a mortgage company. 10% to a property management company. You want to take another 10%, put that in escrow. So you're living off of 80% of the mortgage of the rents that you're charging. And let's say you got 10 houses, you're charging $1,000 per house, which you can't find in a house in Atlanta that's under $1,000. It's very difficult to find that. And I'm talking about metro and everything. So you got 10 houses every month, $10,000, 80%, 20% is 10% saved, 10% goes into the property management company. You got $8,000 that you live off of, but don't live off the 8,000. You take another 1,000, you save that, and you buy more tax liens. You keep buying more tax liens. The gentleman who taught me about tax liens, when he was teaching me about it, he at that time frame had 53 houses that he purchased over a 15-year period. Well, he purchased, and all of them were out of debt within 15 years. And he was putting $35,000 a month in his pocket. That's after paying the management company, after putting money away for escrow, and after just saving another portion of his money. He had $35,000 a month. Still doesn't make you a millionaire, but he had $35,000 a month. You can live a pretty good life with $35,000 a month. Now, here's the sad part about it. I could make a video a day, every day, explaining that process in its simplicity. True, not every property is going to be a winner. Some of them are going to be losers. And you're going to have to like sell it just to get off and up under it, maybe break even. Because when you do your research on a property, what you're also going to be looking for is making sure that the city hasn't put any liens on it. Like if the city has to come and cut the grass at that property, however many times they do it, they put a tax lien on that property. So now you owe, if it's $300 every time they come, and they came 3 times, that's $900 that you also owe on that property. You can't title it until you pay that $900. So even though technically, after you buy a tax lien, you're not supposed to go on the property, you're not supposed to go in the house. If you went and you cut the grass, ain't nobody gonna say nothing. The people in the neighborhood is not gonna care. The city's not gonna care. As long as the grass is cut, that's all they care about. So if you're making sure that you're handling those things and making sure there's no other liens on the property, you're good. The only thing that's going to throw you off then is there's some structural issues that you may not be able to identify. And then that may cost you more money when you're trying to fix it up. But a good 90% of the time, it's going to be a winner. So as much as I can explain that to people, and I have explained that to people over the last like 5 years, I've explained it 50-11 different damn times. The sad part about it, most people won't do it. Most people don't have the patience to do it. Like, Terrence, do you have the patience to stay where you at for another 18 months? Because you say, let's say it takes the next 6 months for you to find a property in Texas or Georgia. Then you pay that tax lien, but now you got to wait a year. So let me say 2 years. Now you got to wait a year before you can get it. Then it might take 6 months for them to fix the house up. Can you wait? At max 2 years to be able to initiate that plan. All right, y'all see Terrence say he can do it. So we're gonna put Terrence on the clock. It's September. Oh, it's 9/11. It's 9/11. So by 9/11 of what year we in? 9/11 of 2025, Terrence should have already moved into a house in Georgia or Texas that he bought on a tax lien and is using and getting ready to use the profits from the sale of his house in Fort Wayne to buy more tax liens. Home values normally stay the same or increase. That 2010 um, recession and bubble doesn't happen that often. It will happen again. It'll happen again. Um, will it happen in the next 2 years? Who's to know? But most likely it won't. Not to the degree that that happened. But if your property value is twice the amount owed on it right now, it's not likely to decrease. Yeah. But I just gave Terrence the pathway. But that's what, I see all these get rich quick schemes that, our people get caught up into over and over again. And it's like, look, just take your time and buy some tax lien properties. The only reason I hadn't bought any myself is because I was planning on leaving. I've helped other people buy them, but I was planning on, I wasn't supposed to be here right now. When I was taught this in 2018, I think is when I was taught it. When was that? I was taught this in 2000. No, I was taught this in 2019, 18 or 19. It was around the same time. Right? My plan at that point was by 2020, I'm leaving. So I was like, I don't want to have nothing to hold me here to America. I don't want to have to come back to America. I'm getting the hell on. But if life would have it, I wound up staying. So my mind has changed a bit now. So you will see me go through the process of buying a tax lien here in the near future. I'm expecting to probably buy one before the year. I'm going to buy one before this year ends. Most likely, probably in around November, December. So you owe me for that information? See, I'm gonna wait, Terrence. I'm gonna wait. I'm patient. I'm gonna wait till you got about 15, 20 tax lien properties under your belt and you making that good money. And then I'm be like, hey man, come on. Now don't try to buy me a cigar. Come on. Let's see the value of the information that I gave you, and you've now been able to increase your income, to 10,000 a month, free and clear. Come on, that means you're making 120,000 a year just on a profit. What is it worth to you? What was it worth to you? What is it worth to you? See, I don't want it now. Right now, it's a little money. I need to be a little bit. I'm waiting for a little bit larger. I'm like, come on, parents. And I will when I first do it. I'm putting things together to reach out to certain family members of mine and try to get them to do it, for us to do it as a group. It'd be nice. Out of the 9 or 10 adults in my family that I know have the means to do it, I might can get 2 of them to actually do it. I could make the kids do it, but I ain't gonna make them do it. I'm gonna let them do it on their own free will. But I am gonna make my son do it though. I let him get settled in the military, but I am going to start pushing him to say, man, look, I found this tax lien. You need to buy it. By the time you get out the military in 3.5 years, you can be set up, but you ain't got to do nothing that you don't want to do. Be 26 years old, talking about something. I ain't got no job. I'm an investor. Yeah, Georgia, you do have a lot of good older black people migrating here, especially all you running away from the winter. But that's how we change the narrative. Is we continue to group together, live in the same communities, live in the same areas, and then take over the economics of an area, and then we can control the politics of an area. Because let me tell you, this area that I'm in right now, let them try to come out with something in this area that violates the Ethiopian community. I guarantee it will not take hold. There are so many Ethiopian businesses around here. There's enough Ethiopians in this community that they're able to facilitate 3 medium-sized mosques in this area. And I'm talking about like within 2 miles, like a 2-mile radius, 2-3 mile radius. They have virtually taken over an area that used to be all Black Americans. So if the city of Stone Mountain, no, I'm not in the city. Yeah, I'm in the city. If the city of Stone Mountain tried to change some shit, these Ethiopians got enough financial power to be like, bullshit. See, the problem is we've been indoctrinated into this country, like so many other people, whose families have been here for more than 4 generations. Like we literally think that we're all united Americans, and we're not. We're not united in any sense whatsoever. Everything is still segregated in this country. What's the food like? Oh, I love it. I love it. They got this market around the corner. Even though it's an Asian market, they definitely pander to the Ethiopian community. Angelina got some golden kiwis from that other day. Whoo, that was good. But the restaurants, see, my problem, this is my problem. Somebody, she who will not be named right now, doesn't particularly care for Ethiopian food. So now that I have my freedom of time, I will be going to get me some Ethiopian lunch from time to time because I love it. Ethiopian food is good for me. And there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 4 or 5 of them within like 1 mile Ethiopian restaurants. It might be 2 of them are 2 miles away. But that's nothing. So there's and within 2 miles, I can get about 4 or 5 Ethiopian restaurants. Then there's a couple other Nigerian style restaurants also that's near, so I can get that. But the Ethiopian, because I eat mostly vegetarian, the Ethiopian restaurants are better for me. Skybox is sending them a plate. Now, my favorite one, I have to go all the way down by the airport and go down to bowling. Go down there. Because they also got this honey bitter wine. I like that. This honey bitter wine that they have. But now the Ethiopians have made great inroads into Atlanta. I mean, a whole bunch of cultures have, over these years. But yeah, the food is amazing. I love it. Or go to Desta. Desta is about 20 minutes away though. Somebody don't like the Ethiopian food too tough, so that's gonna be a me thing. And me will go get it. Be like, nah, don't. What you eat today? I'm going to Ethiopian restaurant, the one that's at the bottom of the little hill, next to the little auto place. I'm going right over there. They got Uber Eats too, DoorDash, but I'll go get it myself. But the food is good. The market over here is good. Um, they're a quiet community. Don't cause any problems. Crime over here is real low. You say you should have been gone. Well, I just gave you a roadmap to make it easier. To me, that would be the best roadmap for you. Um, with the limited amount of knowledge that I have of you, that would be the best situation. Um, I look at Atlanta the same way I look at how when we try to migrate to Africa. Yeah, I'm gonna keep talking about you. Ain't nobody scared of you because you're 15, 20 minutes away from here right now. So ain't nobody scared of you, young lady. But right now, you can't go to Africa looking for a job. You got to go there to create a job. Pretty much no matter which country you go to, except for certain specified fields, engineering, transportation, IT, you can probably find your job and then move. Hospitality. But too many people come to Atlanta looking for a job. You want to come to Atlanta and not need a job. You're gonna work this railroad out and make a. Now I will say that is one of the industries down here in Atlanta where you can find a job down here before you even come down here. Because I forgot the railroad company that's down here. It's not CX, whatever. It's another big one that's down here. They have a corporate office here, but they also have a lot of guys on the rails down here. Nope. It might be Norfolk Southern. It might be Norfolk Southern. Shit, it's right over there by the High Museum, that corporate office. It might be Norfolk. But I knew, I don't know them now, but I knew quite a few people who worked for that railroad, whether corporately or on the line. Skybox, you work on the railroad as well? From 1 a.m. to 1 p.m. Shit. 12 hours. God, I ain't working for nobody for 12 hours other than myself. That's too damn long. Mm-mm-mm-mm. This is why I tell Angelina, I don't have to have a subject matter to get on here, because no matter what subject matter I start out with, it always goes somewhere else that ain't got nothing to do with the subject matter. Connecting them cars. Closest you're gonna get me to the rails is, and this might be too old for y'all, but conjunction junction, what's your function? Hooking up change with adjectives and adverbs. Conjunction junction. Y'all don't know that. Y'all too young for that right now. Now my folks do all the shift here. It'll be 1 a.m. to 1 p.m., 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. God damn. Woo! No, but everybody I knew who worked for the railroads, it was good money in it. Good money in it. It's just, I liked trains when I was a kid. But yeah, now if you can transfer, now if you can take a few years, you could come without the transfer, or you can come with the transfer, still have about 10 houses. That way you can transfer, have the house that you living in on the tax lien, use that profit to buy a bunch of other houses, use your job to pay for your HELOC on the one that you're living in, let those houses get rented, let them pay off themselves. You not set yourself up for a nice, tidy life. I don't know how old you are, but within 5-7 years, You could be just straight. Well, adding the 2 years, so 7 to 9 years, you could be just, hey man, it's Tuesday. Who up for a game of golf? Yeah. So, oh man, you're 48. Yep, smoke some expensive cigars. I'm all for that. So by the time you're 55, in around 55 to 58, 57 rather, you can be like, what you do for that? I'm retired. I'm letting my investments work on my money working for me. I got 15 houses right now. Probably gonna buy another 5 this year. 5 more tax liens this year. And that way next year I have, bring those 5 online, have 20, got 5 more waiting in the wings after that. Just do it till you get to them. I knew a lady, and she didn't buy it through tax, or I don't know how she bought it, but she was 82 years old when I met her. This is when I first got out of the Marine Corps in 99. She was unloading her houses. Most of them were duplexes that she owned. Her and her husband had started buying houses in their 30s. He had passed away, and she had 182 houses with no mortgages on none of them. 182 houses. Most of them duplexes. And her dumbass kids didn't want none of the houses. It was weird. Even the guy I knew who had 53 houses, none of his kids wanted those houses. I wish I did have a parent that said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and sign the trust paperwork over to you for all 53 of these houses. And, it's yours. Yes, I just finished the coffee you made me this morning. Thank you very much. I'd be like, but people do that. I try to give my kids my popcorn shop. No, I don't want it. But they still have to be in that working it though. So that's a difference. They got to put some label. Well, their kids all grew up, went to college, got involved in whatever careers they were in, and they just wanted to focus on their career, not seeing the larger picture here. All that, she had a full-time maintenance man, and she had a full-time maintenance crew actually. That crew was only 3 people, but she had a full-time maintenance crew, and she had she had the property management company that you pay 10% of the rents to the property management company. So she really didn't have to do shit. She ain't got to do that. I said working for someone else's BS. Exactly. You see my video I put out last night, with a Arab Muslim dude talking about some women. Women don't. If a women was smart, they wouldn't be out here talking about they want a career, they want to work. Because no man will literally, hardly any man. There's very few people in the world that says I want to work for somebody. Thank you for sharing. And I appreciate everybody who shares everything. Please continue to share everything. That's what makes me able to do this. Y'all sharing all the videos. But nobody, if people are really, really honest with themselves, get out of the propaganda that they've been told, nobody really wants to work for someone. You don't. That's one reason why I come, whether big or small, whether great or struggling, I have refused to give in to the temptation of working for someone. I've only worked for someone when I had absolutely no choice. Absolutely no choice. And ever since the Marine Corps, I have probably worked for someone else a total of 3 years, maybe 4, close to 4, but somewhere around 3 to 4 years. And we're talking about since 1999. I lived in the back of my popcorn shop for 4 years because I did not want to work for anybody. So I was like, I'm going to live in my shop. And even when I moved the shop, I was like, yeah, I can still live in the shop. And I lived in my shop. LA Fitness was across the street. I went across the street. That's where I took my showers. If LA Fitness closed before I closed, I had this big ass basin thing that I can sit in. Well, I can sit in, but I can pour water over myself and take the shower right there. The hell you say? And by that time frame, my kids was all like teenagers, and they were like, "Well, we don't want to just do the weekend thing and be forced to do it. We have jobs, and want to hang out with our friends and have things." So I had to start having dates with my damn kids, little raggedy jokers. So it wasn't like I had to have a place for them because they were never spending the night anymore. At this point, we would just meet for movies, meet for dinner, go to different events. So I was like, "Fuck it, I'm staying in my store." Especially when the stores weren't doing that well. And I stay right here. It destroys your body. I need cortisol shots in both my shoulders. God dang, bro. Nah, can't get too many cortisol shots. They can mess you up over time. You like these pro athletes all walking all messed up. But no, most people aren't willing to make that kind of sacrifice. I know plenty of people. They're like, "Oh yeah, man, I don't blame you for living in the back of your store." But then I asked them, "Could you do it?" They were like, "Ah, man, I couldn't do that. I could." Like, whatever the hell. I'll do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. Right, you were homeless 3 times? Yep, I've done that one too. Let me tell you about the 3 months that I lived in my truck. That's why some people that I see living in a vehicle, I don't look at them as, oh, I wonder what tragic thing happened to them. The only time I say that is when I see the vehicle just sits there, sits there, sits there. Like there's a vehicle I see, and that motherfucking vehicle don't move at all. No matter what time of day, it doesn't move. Now they just homeless without a plan to me. Could be something else going on, but homeless without a plan. Anytime I was homeless, I was with a plan. When I didn't have a store to live in, and I had to live in my truck, and I've done that. I only did that one time. Yeah, that was one time I did that. Yeah, that was the one time I did that. There were other times where I stayed with my brother or stayed with my mom. Stayed with my mom for like a month. Stayed with my brother for like 2 months. But, mm-mm. And my brother, he did the hotel thing. He did the motel thing for shit. He didn't realize it, but he did that for a year. But he didn't think it was going to be a year. Let me tell y'all his business. Now, I told him this was when people were just buying up houses and they were just buying them sight unseen here in Atlanta. And I told him, I said, man, look, you trying to do yours on VA, you need to start early before your lease is up in your apartment. He was like, nah, man, I'm gonna get out the apartment. And then we're gonna stay at one of them little motel things, extended stay, a nice one. He was like, but we probably only gonna be in there for about a month, 2 months. It took that joker a year. Because the VA only lets you, they have a limit. At the time, at first it was 480, and then they raised it to 520. But every time he bid on the house, some northerner would outbid him for the house. They ain't even seen the house, they outbid him. That shit went on for a year. He's talking about somebody who was pissed off, he was pissed off. Exactly. He was paying more in that goddamn. I told him he was paying more than he would have been paying month to month if he would stayed in that apartment. But he just knew that he was going to be able to find him a house within a month or two. I told him, I said, in the current market, bro, you got all these northerners, they just ain't even seen a house. They just see pictures online, a video tour. House be running for about 420. Next thing you know, they done bid 520, 600 for it. Yep, I was laughing at his ass every month. Every month. Yeah. I wouldn't want to go back. I was just talking to my mom the other day, and we reminisced about when I stayed with her for like 2 months. She never even knew I was there. I would purposely stay away from the house, from her house, until like midnight, then come in, and then get up before she get up and be out the door. I don't like staying with people. Yeah, the motel payment, true, but like a decent one, not one of them ragged ass ones here in Atlanta, will still run you about $1,600 a month in Atlanta for one of them hotel stay places. And extended stays, a good one. Now you can go stay in a little shithole and pay about 1,000, but you paying about 1,600 for one that's good. Mm-hmm. Now you can get on this main street out here where I live and go about 5, 10 miles. There's one up there that's a shithole. Or you go over to Candle Road, the drug infested shithole one. Yeah, you can pay $1,000 over there. Cause say something like 250 a week or 275 a week is what the sign say. Cause I just passed it on my way back home, right off I-20, and that damn thing said it says 275 a week. And when I tell you that thing is drug infested, pop infested, probably roach infested. You're in a jacked up area of town. Hell no, you're still paying $1,000. And the apartments that are in and around down the street from there are going to run you at minimum for one bedroom. Going to run you about 12 to 1,500. Any house in a decent neighborhood in Atlanta is going to run you at minimum 1,500, minimum, and that's a small house. Shit, so it ain't you. That's why I'm saying you. That's a good plan. The plan I gave you is a good plan to come down here. And yeah, one time when I was sleeping in my truck for a month in the gym that I was working for, the guy found out that I was sleeping behind the gym in my truck. He told me where a hidden key was for the gym and what the alarm code was, and basically let me stay in the gym. And I wound up staying in the gym for another 3 months. Uh, but that stuff expensive. But buying a house down here is easy. There's a lot of them, depending on where you want to live. But I would now most of the tax lien properties that you will get, you can get the more expensive one, but depending on how much you want to put into a tax lien. Like let's say you wanted the hold on, it's a different truck. Let's say you wanted, like if you were willing to pay say 4,000 on a tax lien, then you can get one that's already established in a nice neighborhood and probably won't need that much work done to it. But if you pay for one that's say 1,000, it's going to be either in an area that's being regentrified or it's going to be in a low income part of town. But even that low income part of town, when you rent it, as long as you don't do Section 8, when you rent it, you're still going to be able to rent it for like um, somewhere around $1,300 a month. And so even the low income areas of Atlanta, that's so you say that's a good price in Atlanta. For us, that's not. But you know what? You're from up north, so you probably would. So like the house that I'm in now, and this is not being braggadocious, it's just to give you an idea. Um, Decent area town. You don't care about school, so just like I wouldn't. This is not a school district I would actually put my kids in, but um, it's an older house, built in 89, 88, 89. You got a half finished basement, a full main level that has a living room, dining room, kitchen, and what's supposed to be a den, but it's a meditation room. And then 4 bedrooms upstairs, and 2 full baths, 1 half bath. I'm gonna say it's sitting on like maybe half an acre, almost half acre. Because I know the lawn people be looking at this and be like, "God damn!" And it's 1900. You can find that in and around Atlanta. To Atlanta people, that's like ooh, that's a lot. Or right, that's right in there for this area, this neighborhood, this type of house. You know, for some of you Northerners, you'll look at this house and be like, "God damn, that's all I'm paying. That's all I'm paying, and I get all this space." Especially them damn New Yorkers. The New Yorkers come down here and they'll see this house and they see what the price point is. And they be like, "Oh shit, man, I can get 2, 3 families in this damn house." You know, so it's perspective makes a huge difference. Is the point. I passed by this other house and used to pass by this other house. It's for rent. Much better school district, right? Smaller house. Smaller house, and they're renting for the same amount. But I think it's 3 bedrooms. The rooms are smaller. All the rooms are smaller, and I'm not even sure if it has a basement, but it's the same price. The land is probably about the same land size, but it's in Parkview. It's in Parkview School District, and that by itself, they gonna get damn near $2,000 for that house. Oh no! If I wanted to buy this house, I could buy this house right now for like 170. 165, 170. Wouldn't have to pay. No. If they even thought to try to sell this house for 200, they done lost their damn mind. Because you can get some newer inventory in Atlanta for 22, 22.5. Yeah, so y'all be having y'all eyes wide open. Y'all come down here, y'all be like, "Oh shit, man, you know how much this house cost where I'm from?" That's why I'm saying, bro, get them tax liens, then sell your house. Get that tax lien, get down here, sell your house, then roll that into some more tax liens. Because people are moving down here, so you will be able to rent them. And most people aren't going to buy a house; they're gonna rent. They're not willing to do what's necessary to buy a house. They'd rather go buy a new car. They'd rather go buy some jewelry, buy some Jordans or some bronze. They want to go to Mexico. When I lived downtown, the condo I had downtown, I lived down there. All them little young, I was like, damn, these young people must be making a whole bunch of money. No, they just want to live downtown. They open their door and you don't see no furniture in their house. You see milk crates and shit. But then you see them coming back from the airport, coming out, "Oh yeah, just got back from Punta Cana. Just got back from the DR. Just got back from Bermuda." I'm like, you are stupid. You can have all that, but you can have a house too. Or buy the condo. Something. Like we gotta change that mentality, but there are a lot of young people who are buying houses. I know. Majority of my nephews have bought their houses. All I have is nephews. I got some niece cousins, but from my brother and my sisters, all I got is nephews. And they are buying houses. That's close to the value of my home, but it's 3 small bedrooms, 2 baths, no basement. 160K. So you only owe 80 on it? Right? You need to, okay. Yeah, so you got room. So you'd have to figure out what county you want to live in. Look at the tax liens in that county. Like if you are, you know what? It is Norfolk Southern because I just saw the symbol in my head because it's in. It's I think I know it's an N and an S in there, but if you know where, if you know if you're going to try to get a job with Norfolk or transfer with Norfolk, and you pick an area, then you can easily find it. Then you'll be able to find you one just by going on the website. When are you going to talk about the Quran? Talk about it right now. I have limited knowledge on the Quran. I have enough to know that I wouldn't follow that book. Um, I mean, when I look at the history of Muhammad and how he came up with it, you know, he claimed he had visions and Allah met with him and he married a little, was she 14 or some shit like that? That he used to be a slave owner. Um, that the Quran does allow you to have slaves, but you have to be willing to make a way for your slaves to gain their freedom. And it's a good portion of your judgment when you go to heaven if you do that. That it's been changed. They say it's never been changed, but I did go to an ancient Islamic um, mosque when I was in Saudi Arabia, but I noticed that it was pointing north towards Jerusalem. When the one I went to in Turkey, it was pointing south towards Jerusalem. So they used to pray towards Jerusalem, and then they changed it to Mecca. That they run around in circles around that damn meteorite. So they're worshiping a space rock, well, or paying homage to a space rock. There is a difference between the Nation of Islam and, because when I talk to Islamic people about Yaqub, they're like, I ain't never heard of that shit. So that, from my knowledge, is a Nation of Islam thing. They subjugate women in the same way that all other religions, most of these other religions do, in the same way because of the culture to which it was written in. Women didn't have value. So it can't be from some God who's supposed to be this good guy because it would not it wouldn't instruct you to subjugate people. I can't really quote the Quran because I haven't read it since last time I read the Quran was like 92. I know that that's where we get our idea of a genie from, because in the Quran you have jinn, and the jinn are it's the good angel and the bad devil on your shoulder, but it's really about your consciousness and the idea that you can control these jinn and have them do your bidding, which kind of goes into, I don't know if you've ever read Solomon's book of demonology, where he controlled one of the jinn to build his temple. Build Solomon's temple. They got their pig taboo and all that stuff. I know that in the Quran, if a person is not Islamic, you can tax the shit out of them to try to force them to Islam. But during the trans-Saharan slave trade and Arab colonization, it was used to subjugate people as well, either convert to Islam or I'm gonna kill you kind of situation. And just in its inception, Islam would have never grown to be anything if it wasn't for Malik and Ibn Sahih making it a state religion in Syria and Jordan. And, was it Syria and Jordan? It's Syria and either Syria and Jordan or Syria and Jerusalem. I think it's Jerusalem. I think it's Syria and Jerusalem. And, those two states hadn't adopted it and forced their people into it in order for them to fight wars more effectively. Because, fighting for God is a huge drug. And then the whole idea that Muhammad is going to return, and then when he gets to the Dome of the Rock, he's going to need a ladder to get down the rest of the way. Fuck, if you descended from the heaven, what do you need a ladder for? Don't make no damn sense. But That's like, so I remembered all of that. And I remember studying all of that, and it was like, okay, this is another false religion. So I just let it go after that. It wasn't one that I was going to take a whole bunch of time to study. But what you got to say about it? Reverse, reverse, reverse. Was there something specific about it? So although I'm limited on the Quran, I gained enough information about the Quran to know that it is just another false religion created by man. It's Muhammad must have studied the Hindu text as well as the Judaic text, and then formulated a religion based on that. Because a lot of the rituals that I see in Islam reminds me of Hindu rituals. You know, with the amount of times they pray and how they pray and all the other little rituals, you can find some of those in Hinduism as well, just without the different deities. And they're really not deities in Hinduism. It's each deity is an aspect of Brahma. So it's still one God. They just allowed the Europeans to convince them that they worship multiple gods when they really didn't back in the day. But you talk to a Hindu person now, they'll swear up and down that they were a non-Hindu, like a Muslim person from India or Christian India. Oh yeah, the Hindu are polytheistic. No, they're not. Not original. They tricked them into believing that, but not originally. But if you have questions about it, sir, if you have something specific, I'll let you know if I know anything about it. But I ran it, and I just ran it back. By then, I had already read the Emerald Tablets, the Kabbalion, and the Kabbalion. So I ran it through what I knew about that, and found it wanting. And then I researched the history, and I'll research the history of something before I research the thing itself. You know, because if the history don't add up, if the history is all jacked up, then it's already stained. Because when you know the history and the politics around something, the cultural biases around something, then when you read it, you have that lens of knowing what they were actually trying to get across, because you understand the history and know that, okay, you got this little Islamics, you got this little sect of Mohammedites or Mohammedans who are claiming this Allah dude and trying and breaking away from the Arab polytheistic religions at the time frame, and they identified with Abraham, but through Hagar and Ishmael, and that was the line that they took, because they say that through Ishmael 12 kings would be created, and through their story they say that those 12, you know, those were the first 12 caliphs, and you know, 12 kings and caliphs, and I think it's caliphs, but there's no proof of Abraham. So if there's no proof of Abraham, you cannot validate. There's no proof of Hagar, no proof of Ishmael. And they say that Hagar was, you know, when Abraham went into Egypt and lied to the king, to the Pharaoh, about who Sarah was, and then he gave some slaves. They say that one of those slaves that the Pharaoh gave away was his daughter. Hagar was his daughter, and she was a princess of Egypt. Now, I don't know what kind of cruel bastard you got to be, or how much of a run-in that you have in with your daughter, but I'll be damned if I'm going to send my daughter to slavery. You know, I don't give a damn what kind of things were going on in my kingdom. I'm not going to sit there and say, yes, and here's some silver, here's some animals, here's a bunch of servants. And as a matter of fact, take my daughter as a servant to this dude, you know, because he lied. Abraham lied. Pharaoh didn't lie. Abraham lied. Pharaoh just took advantage of his situation of being the king, being a Pharaoh. I have the rights to any single woman that comes into my kingdom to make them into one of my wives. He was following the rights of his culture, whoever this unknown Pharaoh is, because they never named the Pharaoh. So they teach that he gave away his daughter into slavery to Abraham, and then Hagar begets Ishmael. Yeah, they can have that. They can have that religion too. You know, you know, and they got their little animal They had their animal sacrifices back in the day as well. I really can't get with any religion that is going to participate in animal sacrifices. You know, did I study it? Yes. Did I participate in some? Yes. When I was studying Ifa, sure. But you know, I was like, nah, this ain't. I don't see it. You know, the blood of an animal is gonna cover me or cover my house or tell me some fortunes, or the deity needs to consume this animal's blood and this animal's meat as a way of pleasing this deity. You know, this is why part of me leaned towards how the Sumerians talk about how the gods walked amongst them, like they were there, they were present, you know, in their story. This is why I think people gravitate towards it. Even in the Genesis stories, the God, his deities, and his little minions were present in these people's lives, walking around with them, needing to get their feet cleaned and need to eat and rest. You know, what deity or divine being needs rest? Farrakhan seems intelligent on so many subjects, but is stupid when it comes to religion. I will agree with you 100%. If you took all the religious stuff out of what Farrakhan says and just give his politics, very, very intelligent man. What's the other little guy? He's becoming more and more popular now as well. Same difference. Intelligent on some political stuff, community things, but then as soon as they start talking about religion, that's when they get stupid. The NOI is all kind of stupid to me. And how they began was, you know, you got this traveling salesman named Farad who comes and teaches Elijah Muhammad about the Quran, and then all of a sudden Elijah Muhammad becomes the messenger, to which the Bible said, I mean, the Quran talks about after Muhammad, there's no more messengers. So how is Elijah Muhammad a messenger, or the last messenger? Muhammad is supposed to be the last messenger. So, nah. Yeah, animal sacrifices, I think they're horrible. Yeah, I think they're horrible. I participated in one, and that was my first and last. When me and Kevin going to do a religious stream again? Actually, that may happen sooner than you think. I know it's not going to happen right now. Well, let's see. No, he posted it, so that's fine. Right now, he's actually in Georgia. Him and one of his wives, Lacey, they're in Georgia. You know, she's pregnant, and you know, they're in Georgia at a hospital right now. So I know it won't be before all that stuff is taken care of. I was actually thinking about probably if he's still here, if they're still here this week, then I'm gonna definitely want to go up there and see about him, go see him. But I just talked to him yesterday. He was regarded as the coming Messiah amongst a lot of Muslims in the religion and their faith. Yeah. And then he was the coming Messiah, and then talking about how he got to plant his seed in all these little young girls. You're just a dude. You're a horny old man, is who you are. You know. That's all that is. And I don't blame Malcolm for walking away from him at that point, because you're taking advantage of these young women. You're using your power and your position to take advantage of your sexual desires. You see, if that's one thing. Like, if I was to decide that I wanted to be some kind of big time spiritual leader, I'm gonna tell y'all straight up what my sexual desires are, my financial desires are. That way, walking in the door, all right, he just a dude. And I'm not going to put him on this pedestal where I'm expecting this perfection out of him. Because I'm going to recognize him as just a dude. He eat meat sometimes. I ain't going to sit up here and act like he ain't supposed to do no harm, no animal. I ain't going to be Janism walking around, make sure I don't step on an ant. Or wearing a mask so that no bugs fly in my mouth and I don't kill nothing. Can't prepare no food because that would be killing any animal or plant life. Nah. Tell y'all all my jacked up stuff. Well, what some people call jacked up. What I call it's just me. You like it or you don't like it. Don't really care. But see, when you promote yourself to be this messenger, this Messiah, then you're putting yourself on this pedestal, and you want people to worship you and worship the ground that you walk on. Or be like that African pastor who says that he too good to walk on the ground. You're setting yourself up, and you're setting all those people up for a huge ass disappointment, because at some point you're going to disappoint the people. So you couldn't get past the BS of his book. I read his book like back in 91. That's when, from 91 to 92 is when I was researching Islam. And I started with Nation of Islam until I went to Saudi Arabia. Then when I went to Saudi Arabia, I came to that same realization that their brand of Islam was very different from the Islam that was practiced over there. So I was like, well, shit, this is where the original started. So let me read theirs and understand theirs. And, while I was over there, I spent a lot of time with different imams to get a deeper understanding and learning from them. But at the end of the day, it's a faith-based religion as well. Got no facts on nothing. Can't prove shit. And even though, like, well, we know it hasn't, the Quran hasn't changed because, okay, that still don't make it right. Are American Muslims Sunni or Shiites? It depends on which American Muslim you talk about. Like, most of the ones walking around my neighborhood are Sunni. If you're talking about the Nation of Islam, they're neither. They're their own brand of Islam. They're like the Mormons of Islam. Even though they read the Quran, they got their own total different translation to it. There's not many. I haven't met many Shiite Muslims here. I know there are some, but I haven't met many. Most of the Shiite Muslims I met, that's when I was in like Iran, Iraq, Turkey. I didn't. That was when I was in some of those countries, but not here. Over in the Middle East, but not here. I'm sure there are some Shiites here, and they're kind of like the Shiites and Sunni are. What's crazy about them, depending upon what government they're under, determines whether or not they're Shiites or Sunnis. Because if I'm correct, I think like Saudi Arabia is Sunni, but Iran is Shiite. And so they go through the Ayatollah and it's about the bloodlines and the royalties and all that, which kind of determine if they're Shiite or Sunni. They say they had the last caliphate. This one said they got the last caliphate or the current caliphate. All these kind of things. So it's like y'all are just as bad as everybody else. You can't make up your mind who right and who wrong within your own selves. And then you got different interpretations of what you're supposed to be doing. Like most people don't know that Osama bin Laden's grievance wasn't really with America or the Western world. It was with the fact that the Saudi Arabian family, after getting that money, were living more Western lives. And he wanted to force them to go back to living a true Muslim life. So his thought process was, if I destroy the influence, then I can get them to go back to being, the good Muslims that they're supposed to be. It's kind of like how our police departments, I'm going to try to arrest the street level drug dealer so I can stop drugs in the neighborhood. But I'm not really going to mess with the ones who producing the drugs or shipping the drugs over. What my man saying, boys in the hood? What black people own boats, own the farms out in Colombia? We don't own none of that. But that's who they attack. That's who they blame on. Stop the source. The source for the Saudi Arabian family was the oil. And the fact that they started making all this money off that oil. And when you make money, you want shit. You start to make millions and hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. You start saying that, hey, I want that Rolls Royce. I want that pet tiger. I want the jets. I want to go, when I'm out of the light of everybody else, I want to party like, with the women and all this kind of stuff. Like, you should see, I've seen some of them jokers when, they all, praying and all humble and doing all this stuff. And then I'm like, okay, we at this event. Y'all can't drink and y'all ain't supposed to be drinking the liquor, but y'all sure drinking that liquor. Y'all got these women doing all kind of things up under them gowns that y'all ain't supposed to be doing. And then they walk out, and the next day you see them, they all, I'm like, come on, man. Y'all some big hypocrite. But that's what old boy was actually trying to do. He was trying to, like, if I snuff out the influence, then they'll go back to how they're supposed to be. No, you snuff out the influence, that's just gonna give them more money and more access to go buy more shit. Have you been to Dubai? They say they're like a Shiite and Ayatollah. Oh, well, my Dubai experience will be different than if anybody's been to Dubai like in the last 15, 20 years. When I went to Dubai, they didn't have all the islands. It wasn't as nice as it is. Like 2 minutes outside the city, or sometimes in the city, you might see a camel still walking down the street in Dubai. They still have camel herders. So I went to Dubai in 91. So it was a little different. But it was still the place. I don't know if they Shiite, because the way it was explained to me, and even in our debriefing, they said that Bahrain, I call it Bahrain, it's Bahrain, but Bahrain and Dubai was the place that Muslims go to not be Muslim. Like, they literally explained it to us like that. Like, so I know y'all just came from Saudi Arabia. I know y'all saw people being, 100% into the culture of how women dress, how they cover themselves, the rules that women can and cannot do. But Dubai, like Saudi Arabia, woman can't drive. Dubai, women drive. Saudi Arabia, no woman is wearing jeans or shirts showing a little cleavage. Shit. Dubai, shirt, cleavage, jeans, sundresses. Some of them still will have their hadith on, but they got a nice little sundress fitting that body. They out shopping. Like, you see a crew of women, about 3-4 of them. They all wives to one dude, and they out shopping. And especially when we got to Dubai, they were having their 30-day shopping festival. You go to the little Middle East hotel, they got the Asian women on the top floor singing the little songs and half dressed. you know, and all them Arab men sitting around. They got you get off on any of the other floors. They got the African floor, this the European floor, this is the Southwest Asia floor, this is the Asia floor, this is the American floor, and it was just like Rush Hour 2. That damn it opened up and it's like all these women. And I sure got on that dude nerve. All right, bro. I was married at the time, so I wasn't doing nothing. But I was like, look, I'm gonna ride this elevator, which I'm gonna see what every floor looks like. I ain't going and getting off. I just want to see. Then I'm gonna go to the top and listen to the lady sing. But nah, yeah, they had like, yeah, gold vending machine. I did see that like when they did have that in '91, where well, it wasn't at the airport. It was at it was like in some of the shopping areas, some of the shopping streets. It would be like a damn vending machine, and you can buy gold necklaces, bracelets, earrings, all this shit like right out of the vending machine. It was weird. It was different, I should say. But yeah, it was. I like Dubai better then, even though I haven't been since they've done all that stuff. I'm pretty sure I would like it now with all the commercialization, but and you know it's more modern than it was when I was there. But it was a party, and after you just finished with Desert Storm, I was happy to be in somewhere where we can just party and just have fun and not be stressed and go listen to music and go to some dance clubs. And yes, they had dance clubs, and some of them women they was dancing, and you think it was just the expatriates, the expats who were dancing. No, it was in there too. You know, so haven't been since '91, but man, I'll go back. It's not on my big list of places to go. If you went to Dubai, you probably wouldn't live in Dubai. You would probably live in Jebel Ali. Jebel Ali is a big expat area, so a lot of the expats live there. There are still some restrictions for women outside of like the expat communities, but you will probably want to live there. Like you can have in the expat community, you can have liquor and all that stuff. When you go into Dubai, it's hard to get liquor. There's only certain places you can get it, but it's hard to get it. Most of the time, you ain't gonna get it until you like get to know the people. But it's kind of like black market style stuff. Even when you go into the bars or anything like that, whether restaurants or you won't be able to get it unless you know somebody. So, and this is from some of the people I know who are expats who are living over there right now and have been living there for like, what? Let's see, she been over there. When did she leave? She left in like 2014. This one lady I know, her and her daughter, they moved over there in 2014, and like they can wear shorts in Jebel Ali, but if they leave Jebel Ali, they can't wear shorts or anything like that unless they go straight to the beach. They can get on the beach and they can wear their bathing suits, but then when they leave the beach, they got to cover up, you know, to a certain degree. But cost of living wise, shit, I go to Bali, I go to Togo and Benin. Actually, I go to Togo and Benin. I don't think Angelina would live in Bali. You know, the lizards. I think the lizards would bother her in Bali. I want to live in a place with no mosquitoes. Can I go there? I want to go with no mosquitoes, especially bold enough to come up in my face like that. But yeah, we should. I know a lot of us started going to Dubai over the last few years. It became like this place to go. It was like we was all going to Brazil, and then we all started going to Dubai, and now everybody's going to the DR. You know, and even now people are now as far as moving People are moving to Tanzania and Ghana and Senegal. Those are some of the central places that people are moving to. But your money will go a lot further in Ghana, Senegal, Belize. Belize, um, Togo, Benin, Tanzania. You get a lot more bang for your buck. Rwanda, Uganda, Botswana, and you can live a great life. I wouldn't. Nope, nope, nope. Not for me. Not for me. You couldn't pay me to live in Dubai. And I almost ended up in Dubai. This guy wanted to open up a popcorn shop in Dubai. Then I found out that unless I'm in Jebel Ali, that the Emirati would have to own 51% of the company. And if they ever wanted to kick me out of the company, they can kick me out of the company without reason or cause or provocation. And I had no recourse to get any money out of it. They could just say, well, we good. We don't need you no more. So see you later. And that'd be it. And I had no recourse. So we were like probably a month away from finishing that deal when the international lawyer that I went and spoke to broke that part down to me. And I was like, hell no. Joe can get me over there, get them set it up, get the process going, get them all the recipes, and I get them going. And then a year later, they like, okay, we don't need you no more. So American politics and sometimes unions are destroying the redevelopment of here north. Not so much in the South. We got unions, but they usually work well with unions here. From all the union people that I've talked to, they don't have much of a problem. There's not many strikes that are going on. Atlanta's losing some money right now with the writer strike and the actor strike. Because the whole movie production company industry here in Atlanta has been shut down. Usually, you ride around Atlanta, you see all them goddamn yellow signs everywhere. But I ain't seen a yellow sign in months. So all that's been shut down. But other than that, like the electricians union, the rail unions, all of them, they I guess everybody happy. And as far as fixing things around here, no, they always fixing some shit. That road construction getting on my nerve. Ooh. We luckily avoided a whole bunch of it. Was that Saturday? Yeah, when we went to see my mom. Angelina was like, why are they doing all that construction? It's a Saturday. They should be doing it at night. Look at all that traffic they create. And I was just like, as long as we ain't in it, I'm all right. Yes, it's stupid, but we not in it. So I'm good. That's why I will say in Atlanta, even if it's a Sunday at 2:00 in the morning, check your Google map before you drive. Because if you don't, they will have a whole highway shut down and you will sit in for 3-4 hours. Because of some road construction or some accident that has stopped the whole highway. We do need better train systems down here. Our train system sucks. Our public transportation is not that great here in Atlanta. They need to let me run it for about 20 years and I have it squared away. Know exactly what to do. It shouldn't take millions to fix a mile-long road. Oh, hell no, certainly should not. But yeah, I know I got started late today, but I'm gonna have to get off here. I know Angelina's gonna be home soon, and I need to run this machine in the house that makes a whole lot of noise because I do like the house to not smell like cigars when she walks in the door. So I need to run this machine that'll clear out the house, even though we got windows open. So, but I do appreciate you guys being patient with the fact I forgot to tell you on Friday that I knew I wasn't gonna start till late. But I wasn't reminded of that until Saturday. Not that that's you guys' fault or my daughter's fault. I just completely forgot that I had to meet her today. But we will be back here tomorrow going through, we're on Leviticus 21 and 22 for what's wrong with the Bible. We'll be doing that. And I'm sure there's a few more videos that I think I might shoot today at some point. So I will publish those. And please go check out the 2 videos that I already published today. Please share them. Share this video. I want to thank everybody for all their shares because that's how these channels grow. Um, Actually, we wind up increasing 7,000 new people uh, through August up to now. So it's been a great growth, and we want to keep that going. So go ahead and brush up on Leviticus 21 and 22 for tomorrow, and we'll discuss that one as we go through it. Y'all have a great day. Thank you. Yeah, Debbie said everybody have a wonderful day. Y'all have a great day. And remember, always, you got to free yourself. Oh, I need y'all to go look up A. Sheffield. That's Angelina's page on TikTok. I need y'all to go follow her page, her TikTok page, if you haven't already followed it. She did yesterday. She did a one of them little fake NPC videos. But I want, if she gets to 1,000, she has to do it live. So she did one in a devil suit, a devil outfit, which was funny as hell to me. So y'all go and follow her page, A. Sheffield, on TikTok. And I appreciate it if you did. But y'all have a great day. And remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is not negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. And let's click on out.